This lesson, you're going to learn how to estimate the value of an irrational number. The standard is NS2. Use rational approximation of irrational numbers to compare the size of irrational numbers. Estimating. To estimate the square root of a non-perfect square, you first find two consecutive perfect squares that are the non-perfect square is in between. Then take the square root of each number. So, find the perfect square of 12. So, what are the perfect squares? What are the perfect squares to the left and to the right? So, if I have 12, I have to think. What perfect square is below 12? Well, it's 1, 4, 9, 16. So, 9, 16. Now I think to myself, which one is 12 closer to? 12 is closer to 9, so I take the square root of 9. That means 3 is closer to the square root of 12 than the square root of 16, which is 4. So the square root of 12 is closer to 3 if I was estimating. Square root of 55. Think to myself, what are two perfect squares to the left and to the right? To the left is the square root of 49. To the right is the square root of 64. The square root of 49 is 7. The square root of 64 is 8. So if I'm estimating 55 is closer to 49, so if I'm estimating the square root of 55 is 7. Square root of 108. To the left is 100 as a perfect square. Well, 10 times 10 is 100, so the next one is 121. And I have to think to myself, which one is it closer to? 108 is 8 away from 100, 13 away from 121, so that means the square root of 100 is 10, so if I'm estimating, the square root of 108 is closer to 10. The same process goes for cube root. So we want to find the cube root of 110. Well, 110 is not a perfect cube, so I have to think, what are the perfect cubes? 8. 3 to the third power is 27. 4 to the third power is equivalent to 64. 5 to the third power is 125. So 110 is in between those, so I'm going to take the cube root of 64 and the cube root of 125. The obvious answer is 125 because 110 is closer to 125 than 64. So the cube root of 125 is 5. So that means estimate the cube root of 110 is 5. The cube root of 205. Now, the best way is to play around with some numbers. Go 5 to the third power. I get 125. That doesn't work. 6 to the third power. 216. So, cube root of 216. The cube root of 125. The cube root of 216 is 6. We are estimating the cube root of 205 is closer to 6 than 5.